Welcome to Obstacle Running Adventures.
Over the last 7 years, we have consistently released weekly episodes focusing on
obstacle course racing, running, and other adventures.
You'll hear interviews, event recaps, conversations about our sport,
quick news updates about happenings in our community.
And now, here are your hosts,
Standing on the corner,
Michael Stefano and Caitlin Ritter.
Hey guys, it's Michael Stefano.
And Caitlin Ritter.
And Caitlin, how was your weekend?
It was good. We saw some friends last night.
Yeah,
we saw
actually a
Lexi
good time.
and Chris.
Yep.
Lexi and I baked while you guys played video games.
Yes. Is this the first time we're recording since we've gotten Appa?
We teased it a little bit last weekend.
Okay, I can't remember.
But then you wouldn't let me talk anymore.
Why?
I don't know. You said we don't have him.
Oh, well, because we didn't know if things were going to work out. But it'd be awful if we were talking about him and, things didn't work out at the vet and, he was actually sick. And, I don't know. We have him now, so now we can talk about him.
Yes.
So we got a new cat.
So Mike and I went to the animal shelter to look at 4 young black cats.
Mm-hmm.
And we left with a mostly white tabby cat named Appa.
Who's not middle-aged, but not
He's
young.
4.
Yeah, he's 4.
Appa,
Just
not
like a
Appa. I keep calling him the wrong thing.
Yeah. Make me saying Appa. Yeah, Appa.
No.
And if you get the reference, you get the reference, and you're one of the cool people. Let's give a shout out to our sponsors.
Shout out Mudgear. Use code ADVENTURE for 15% off your next Mudgear purchase. And Caterpie, use code OCRReport20 for 20% off your next Caterpie purchase.
Perfect. We're going to shout out the Patreon supporters. We do have a new one.
Ooh.
We'll shout out as well.
Forgot about her.
All right, so we'll do the $5+ Patreon supporters.
Jason Dupree, Samantha Thompson, Dave Claxton, Bradley Keel, Charlotte Engelman, Aaron Grindstaff, Laura and Stephen Ritter, Hank and Arlene Stefano, Kenny West, Cheryl Miller, Jessica Johnson, Nick Riker, Christopher Hoover, Kevin Gregory Jr., Evan Irick, Brent George, Kevin Preter, Wendell Lagash, Logan Nagel, Patrick Brown, Asa Coddington, and Seth Rinderknech, and our new Patreon supporter, Bonnie Wilson.
Yes, thank you for the support. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And a shout out to the OCR Report.
For being a home for us on the internet.
Will Hicks.
The Podfather.
Check it out over at theocrreport.com. They're helping share their love for the first news story that we'll talk about in a little bit, and to our sponsored athletes.
Javier Escobar, Kelly Sullivan, Ryan Brizzalara, and Joshua Reed, who recently became an official Colorado resident.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that. Congratulations.
He's like me.
Yeah, it just took him a little bit, that's all. Poll results, we're going to skip that.
Why? We did a poll.
Did we? What was the poll?
Oh, did you not see it?
Probably not. You posted a few things that I wasn't aware of.
Am I not allowed to?
No, of course you are. Preferably, I would like to look better in the videos, but hey, that's on me.
I thought you looked good.
Yeah. In fairness, I was trying to go slow in that video.
I posted...
Oh, okay, this was a poll, okay.
Does anyone else awkwardly creep on their significant other while at the gym? So you were a row in front of me on the treadmill, and I was also on a treadmill. And 68% of people said obviously, and 32% of people said no, let them work out in peace.
That's actually a lot of votes. Thanks for everyone that voted. That's pretty funny.
I thought so too.
Yeah. We are going to skip meme of the week, though. I don't have anything prepared this week. We're going to get to some quick news, starting with the Boston Run Show. Caitlin, can you give a little bit of information about this?
Yes, so the Boston Run Show is next weekend at the Heinz Convention Center, and we went last year, and they have guest speakers from the running community, tons and tons of, vendors.
Lots of cool people around there. It's going to be both a Saturday and Sunday event. We plan to be there both days and turn it into, a little dinner date while we're in Boston, too, and it can't be as cold as last weekend, right? I mean, last year.
That was terrible.
It was damn near close to 0 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, so they focus on trail and ultra running, road and marathon running, and then there's a kids zone.
Nice. And if you haven't listened to our 2 episodes where we covered it last year, it's nice because it's not a Boston Marathon convention where everyone there is already kind of worried about the Boston Marathon. Everyone here is just in a good mood, all from different walks of life, and had a really good time. So if you can sign up, use code LASTCHANCE, and we'll see you there. I also wanted to give a shout out about the Northeast Ultra Cup, which I thought I talked about before, but I may not have. So the Northeast Ultra Cup features a few different events, and the best mileage over 3 different events wins, and everyone gets like a participation prize too. It's a cool little thing that we're doing to try to boost races up here in the Northeast. So the first event is April 13th, which is the New York Boogie Wonderland. They have a 3-hour and a 6-hour event. Then there is the New Jersey Ultra Trifecta Weekend, which is April 27th and 28th. May 11th is New York's Mud Gauntlet by Noob Sanity, the 6-hour event. May 18th and 19th, they have the Pennsylvania Toughest Mudder 12-hour. June 1st is the New Jersey G8 race put on by Goliathon. And it culminates with the series finale at the New York Ultra Viking 8-hour race on July 27th. So there it is. Overall mileage awards for everyone and top 3 divisional podium spots. So that's a pretty cool event. It's a good way to get people accountable. Like Caitlin, who's trying to get into ultra running. Or me that needs to just get back into running in general.
That is crazy that I'm getting into ultra running when I do in fact just walk. Because it's the same thing. Kind of. All right, Caitlin, you take this next news story. Face Thinning posted on Instagram, welcome our baby boy Colt. He came early, January 3rd, with an emergency induction followed by an emergency C-section.
Yeah, congratulations to her for having her baby. Not a human baby, but Miranda Kilpinski and Michael Suezo have 2 new animals.
Ooh.
Yeah, it fits the theme with getting Abba. So she posted, meet Laika. She's our new Belgian Malinois puppy. She's got some big shoes to fill, raising her the same way we did for Glacier. Can't wait to watch her grow up. And then not long after, meet Aspen, our 8-week-old Siberian Husky puppy. Looks like we got another stoner pup in our hands.
What does that mean?
Look at his eyes.
Oh. And another animal, Casey Monroe posted, drove a total of 19 hours to go pick up our new family member and bring him home. Welcome to our family, Merlin. We love you already.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's so cute.
He is. And I'm pretty sure someone else got a new dog too. There's a lot of new dogs this week, which is pretty cool. And then Savage Race released their, unveiled their Savage Race medals.
Unveiled,
yeah. Jessica, Poppy, you're great and all, but sorry, I'm not going to watch a 20-minute video of the unveiling of that. Upscale Racing Media shared just the picture of it. And those look pretty sweet, huh?
Yeah.
I kind of wish I got the ones last year, too. I had to miss Savage Boston, unfortunately. But yeah, those are pretty sweet. DecaFit has some updates in the 2024 season. So the key changes include the rep line is added to the Zone 1, so athletes must start the zone standing with both feet in front of the rep line. After stepping back into lunge, athlete must bring their foot back to the front of the rep line. Rep is counted when both feet are in front of the rep line. These are really kind of dull to read. So you can go down below and read more about this as well as all other news stories. Yeah. And we want to give a shout out to the Mudgear Hannibal Race Pro Team. I'm not sure if they're done adding people, but this is who we have so far. We're seeing Vivian Tran, Kevin Thompson, Sarah Grippy Snyder, who actually gets mentioned in this episode, our friend Josh Fiore, and Noel Medina. So congratulations to them. There might be 1 or 2 more. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to reach out. And Secret Link, there's 5 of them down below, so go and check those out. Let's get to what this episode's all about. So I had an athlete on who we mentioned a lot last year when reading Podiums, Cassandra Gill. The amazing Jack Bauer put up posts about who had the most elite Spartan podiums from the men and the women in 2023. And when I saw Cassandra on there, I figured this would be a great excuse to finally have her on the show. So we talk about how she got into obstacle course racing, races that stood out to her the most last year, ice cream, and so much more. So let's get to the interview with Cassandra. So we'll start off with your name and where you're from.
Cassandra Gill from New Rochelle, New York.
Awesome. So I remember hearing your name pretty often when Caitlin would read Quick News Podiums last year, but I think it was the Boston Spartan weekend that really got my attention. But before we get to that, tell me a little bit about how you got into the sport of obstacle course racing. How did you find this? What was your athletic background before?
Yeah, so I was in college competing for Iona College. They now are Iona University. They are a small Division I school for run, and they have a really phenomenal running program. Like they focus just on distance running because we're a small school. We can't have a really robust program for funding every single aspect of, say, track and field. And they really focus and double down on that. And it's been like a huge like pride and joy for the coaches have been were so involved in all of that. And so being just outside of New York, there was also athletes from all around the world, and that would be one of the strong hooks of, hey, you could come to New York, and had coaches who really, really cared about the athletes. So context too, and a lot of the Division I sports for track and field, right, especially for the international students, if you're not performing, like you can lose your scholarship very easily year to year. It's that competitive. But our coaches were very much like, hey, injuries can happen. Like we're going to work with you through, and like you're going to have that commitment from our side through and through those like 4-5 years where you're with the program. So that also really benefited me because I was on and off with injuries throughout college. And so I was always one of the bigger runners on the distance side of things. Definitely had consistently, I would say, 15 to 20 pounds, probably more muscle than a lot of the women I would be with on the starting line, just kind of naturally, and also mixed with having an affinity where I do enjoy strength training, and strength training helps me avoid injuries to a good extent. So especially on the 10K line, a lot of the women you're racing against are they're just petite very much naturally. And I just geared towards having a bit more muscle, and it helped me to be able to not break down when I'm like running long distances. Other people like their muscles are getting tired. I could just kind of just keep going at a pace. And I listened to some of the different health and fitness podcasts as I was running, and it had come up on a Ben Greenfield podcast about obstacle course racing and all of that. I was like, oh, well, this aligns perfectly with my interests of, I love the distance running, the grindiness of that, enjoy the strength training component and like the consistency and how that also helps complement you to stay healthier for running. And I just thought like, seems like something that I could potentially be really good at, aligning with that. And then, so little did I know there's a lot more of a learning curve than just being strong and being able to run well on a track.
But I mean, that's a pretty good background. Running in strength training, that's pretty much what the sport is made up of. And I noticed that in your bio too, when you said runner and weightlifter. And I hear more and more about how running is it inherently breaks your body down, and strength training builds it back up too. So how do you find that balance to be helping combating injuries?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me personally, it's everything.
Mm.
I am the type of person like I want to go, 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 and try to take on as much volume as possible. But there becomes a point for everybody where like you hit diminishing returns, and some people are just so lucky and they're so gifted where they never get injured. Like you can keep stacking on the mileage for them and their body consistently stays healthy. I mean, that's I think what separates even a lot of the athletes who become like those professional runners and the Olympians. It's that not only are they working hard, it's also that they have this unique genetic ability or like that perfect running form where their body just doesn't get injured with the same volume and intensity that a lot of other people would with that. So for me, and it's been critical for me coming back from different injuries to fix different mechanical issues I've had running, being able to make sure my body can better absorb the impact of the forces of everything you're throwing at with running. And as I've gotten into OCR, what I also really love about OCR is that it forces you to have to be balanced in some different ways from an athlete perspective, because you can't become such a good runner that you just let the strength fall to the wayside, because then you won't be able to physically do some of the things. And if you really want to have a good strength training program, you should be strength training, and that's your core focus when you have your strength training session. You can't be like, I'm going to hit a big PR lifting after I went for a 10-mile run. Like you're not going to be able to be as strong. So from a variety perspective, when I weightlift really heavy 2 days a week, I don't run those days. And that forces me like, hey, you know what? That's not the goal for today. The goal is not to just keep layering on the mileage and use it as a really great way to build up your body to get to be stronger and stronger, address those inconsistencies or like little areas you need to improve upon, and just continue to build the foundation so that you're not like slowly degrading different tendons and ligaments over time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's with, both of those avenues of fitness too. It's also important to, work hard, recover hard too. Right. So how important is recovery in your training too?
Oh, I mean, 100%. I mean, I think about my weightlifting days as kind of like my recovery days from that, because if you're weightlifting to try to maximize strength, you're not doing it circuit style. We're trying to go as much as possible, and you're huffing and puffing with every single lift. Like you need to have that recovery built into your sets, and um, you could be going the whole time doing different exercises, but you want to be slow, like slow about it, methodical, not race, 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 go, 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 and really be intentional and giving it your just ultimately focus being in the flow lifting. So I think that helps support that recovery aspect. And um, at the same time, I mean, recovery, as fun as it is to run fast, you can't have every run cannot be faster than your last one continuously and continuously. So that's an important piece for the longevity component. That's something that I've also had to find like the right balance of what that looks like for myself as a runner, because it really varies across everybody so much.
Yeah, definitely. And then and speaking about building up, one of the best things I think about OCR is the sense of community. And I saw that you went out to Boulder to train with a lot of amazing women, Nicole Miracle, Annie Doobie, Allie Tippett. I'm going to regret naming people because there's so many people out there. How was your trip out there training with all those women?
It was absolutely incredible. I mean, I just love the community in general at all of the races. Like, I'm a bit more of an introvert by nature,
Same.
but I absolutely love being able to be a part of this community with women who share these same passions and interests, and same thing, even like the men within the races. It's just when you're racing in general and when you're training in endurance athletics, it's about bringing the best out of yourself, and your competitors around you are helping you like reach what's your potential. So that training trip out there to get to meet more of the women from the West Coast, because I'm mostly always meeting different women on the starting line and the finish line on the East Coast mostly, was really amazing to be able to kind of identify gaps of here's where there could be improvements made with your training. So for me, it was actually, hey, you should pull back a little bit more on the easy runs and then keep working by pulling back a little bit more on your mile on the pace of your runs. You can start to then focus on increasing the total volume of your runs a little bit more. So that was a good takeaway point for me on that end. Because I definitely was falling a little bit more. Okay, I want to keep getting a little bit faster, a little bit faster. Like maybe I was stretching my easy pace a little too much when it was better to add on more mileage for the sake of these races can be very long in OCR time-wise on feet. And also to see more of like what is possible, because I mean, if you look at Nicole, Annie, Allie, some of the different the athletes, especially from the technical obstacle skill proficiency, like there are so many levels and layers to keep getting better. And what was nice about that was to be able to see someone who's like, this is like second nature to them. They have this level of mastery that you realize like, okay, you're not there, but then you also see the possibilities from that, and to be able to get tips and tricks from these other women and also encouragement as well. Like that's so important because obstacle course racing by nature, like there's a lot of failures along the way, and you really have to be able to keep picking yourself back up and being like, okay, it's okay. You know what? I'm way off the mark with this, but what's the steps that I could start to take to get better and get better? And so that was really nice to identify that. We went to an OCR training gym out there, I think it was like Fit OCR.
Was it Fit Fokker?
Fit Fokker.
I've heard a lot about that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So seeing some of those obstacles for the first time too that were much harder, it gives like, okay, exactly know what I need to work on. But it was really just wonderful, like meeting all these different women, different backgrounds, and different phases of life where they're in and training and how long they've been doing this sport, and being able to connect with them was just absolutely wonderful. And at the same time, humbling too, in the perfect kind of way.
I mean, OCR is all about working on your weaknesses, and with OCR, there's so much variety, which is a great thing to have. But it's almost to like a detrimental effect sometimes too. Because speaking of failures in quotes, like I think that trip was out there to help you like prepare for elevation and stuff for OCRWC. Now OCRWC is very different than Spartan Race for a variety of reasons. The mandatory obstacle completion, just the difficulty of the obstacles themselves. how was your OCRWC experience? Was that your first time?
That was my first time, and it was definitely incredibly challenging. So the venue where it starts off at, you're at 8,000 feet or so of elevation already. So I had come into that knowing, hey, the elevation was going to be pretty high. And in Colorado, I felt pretty good at that relatively. But at each 1,000 meters, you keep going up. Once you're at like 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, it's a whole other level mixed with very steep hills relatively. So I went into that saying, okay, I'm going to try to do my best, try to complete all the obstacles, just focus on giving it your best, but not trying to do too much like from the start here on that end. And I did find some of the obstacles to be so challenging. Like I didn't know if there was this snake pit obstacle where you have to traverse from ropes, skinny ropes, skinny ropes, skinny ropes, then traverse upside down like you would for a trolley and traverse, and then get yourself over to more ropes to traverse, like standing up basically again. And on the women's side, that destroyed like it just like really took out a lot of us for the field. And it was only it was pretty early on into the race. Like so I think there was only 10 women total in the whole elite field who even finished all the obstacles successfully.
Oh, wow. Was that the 3K or the 15K? Do you know?
The 15K on that side. Yeah. So it's like I didn't know I'd have to learn how to be able to swing upside down because I'm 5'4", rounded up. And if you're like a 6 foot, even like probably like a 5'7" type of athlete, you could just reach the rope. I couldn't. I'd have to learn how to swing upside down. So something I would never have expected, and I will work on that. And then there was right shortly after that an obstacle where you were having to like a low rig where you did have to know how to swing upside down again. But so overall, I mean, I gave absolutely everything to that course. By the end of it, I was out there on course for 6 hours trying to get every single obstacle. Even though like I failed the snake pit, I was like, okay, well, I got to just keep trying everything as much as possible to just get that experience and also know, even if your grip is really, really fatigued, well, could I have done this if I didn't fry my arms trying an obstacle for an hour plus out on course? But it was a good experience. Overall, it definitely shows like those layers of the obstacle proficiency and just how much of a challenge it is, but also the difference of how much it can make, especially I think on the women's side of the field. Of it's not, if you can come in first time through and do all those obstacles, like props to you. That is absolutely amazing, incredible. I'm just not one of those kind of athletes where it comes that naturally to me and I can just do it, crush it, got that body awareness intact perfectly.
Yeah. The first thing for me with OCRWC this year that kind of turned me off a little bit was the elevation, mainly itself, that and the difficulty of getting to the venue were the reasons why this was the first time I've missed it in a while. But how was the venue itself? I heard Mammoth Lakes was beautiful, albeit hard to breathe.
Yeah, I mean, it was beautiful because we flew into San Francisco. And then that drive, you actually have to drive through Yosemite Valley to get there. And I planned after the race, we planned it to be, okay, if we're going to go all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, this is our big trip for the year. So we explored Yosemite and Sequoia National Park afterwards. Absolutely amazing. I mean, Yosemite is definitely a place you have to go there, visit once and explore. It's just absolutely incredible. And Mammoth Lakes was about 90 minutes away from that. So from Yosemite. So you're driving through the mountains in that direction. Then you're in this other mountain town, beautiful mountains, absolutely beautiful sights to see from that kind of standpoint. So I would recommend as like probably must go once if you're able to make it work.
That's a good selling point. I put a lot of emphasis on the fact that like, oh, it takes a long time to get there, not like, holy shit, there's probably some really nice views on the way to a beautiful place as well. So I'm glad you brought that up too. So let's get into your year as a whole last year. So one of the reasons that I decided to now would be a good time to reach out was Jack Bauer put out beautiful stats as he always does, and you were ranked top 5 for most elite Spartan podiums last year. As a whole, how do you feel about that looking back on your 2023?
I'm definitely proud of where I've come so far in my journey. So last year for 2023, my goal was to just really focus on consistency and making the improvements that I wanted to be making and continue to like to be within reach. So the year prior to that in 2022, there were so many chances where I'd go up to obstacles. It was a 50-50 shot. Am I going to make the monkey bars? Um, I don't know how to really swing and get momentum naturally. So it was kind of like, maybe it's going to happen. Maybe you're going to freeze up. And very quickly, you can go from being in third place in obstacle course race on the women's side to being 10th, 11th, 12th from just failing a couple of the obstacles. So that was my goal coming in. I wanted to be much more obstacle proficient, be very consistent there, and continue to be consistent with my training for running and building up to have consistency in terms of just being healthy. Because that's sometimes one of the most important factors that you're able to stay healthy consistently and you can slowly layer on. Because it's great if you can, I guess the biggest, it comes down to like staying that you're able to keep ramping up your volume slowly, but the biggest thing is staying injury free from the consistency standpoint. And so that was my goal for the year, to not let any kind of injuries take me out for several weeks and really affect my training, and then see like what's possible with that. And I was really happy with being able to keep finding those specific things to get better on with the obstacles, stay consistent with training, and then it really was able to like help impact my ability to race well.
Yeah. So I think offhand, I want to say there's like 13 or so Spartan podiums, or is it somewhere around that?
Yeah, it might be it's 14. It's either 12 or 14.
Yeah. So that's a lot. It's too many to go over all of them. But what
Yeah.
would you say, like, go into some of your highlights? Like, what were your favorite events that you took part in this year? Whether it was Spartan, Savage, like, what stood out to you most?
So I mean, it was really exciting to get my first win in Jacksonville. I mean, that was a really exciting. It was a three-way race between me, Ashley, and Mary down in Florida. And so we all basically went into the multi-rig towards the end, uh, all of us kind of neck and neck. And that race was decided with, I was the one who was able to get through the multi-rig cleanly after all of the mud and all of that. So that kind of consistency and being able to nail things a bit better was something I was really proud of, like those small wins to really make or break a race. Um, and then even in the month after that in Atlanta, had a really fun second day racing against Sarah Grippy Snyder. We were both racing together in Atlanta and pushing ourselves pretty well. And she had actually given me tips the day before of how to be able to like better come through on Olympus. And that was the first time I was able to nail Olympus.
The top one, yeah.
And then like when we finished in the course overall, it's like, oh, it was fifth overall, like including like the men who were in that elite race. So that was also that was pretty exciting on that end of like just kind of stair stepping, keep trying to build momentum. And then one of my other highlights, I guess, was in May, just a little bit short, but I had an ultra race, and the one woman, Mary, she beat me by like 90, like a minute in this ultra, like the ultra race. And she finished fourth overall for the elite field, and I was fifth overall for the elite field. I'm like, I think I was within 20 minutes or so of the men's time that won. I'm like, I really want to just win an ultra all outright. Like that's going to be one of my goals here within the next year or two. And because I failed a good amount of obstacles the second time through just from the fatigue. So it's one thing to be able to do something the first time. It's harder a lot of times the way through. Like I couldn't do the rope climb at the end because my grip was fried. And I was like, if I just had a little bit better technique at the end, that could have been the difference. But like those types of things, I think that's really exciting when you have these small micro adjustments that you identify that you can make and improve on. And in the course of an ultra, that could be tens of minutes overall for something like that. So just seeing that it wasn't the perfect outcome, but with a couple of adjustments could really be able to maybe like make a statement in something like that. So those are like some of the like top highlights to me from earlier on in the season. and then racing against Miranda for the New York tri-state race, the sprint in June, and then in August. That was a nice, like, humbling experience because she was able to break away from me both times. Like, okay, I have to keep kind of working on that time on feet kind of piece of it and being able to know how to push your body the exact right way to be able to time it really well when you're racing against someone who is also really fast too on that side of things. So I had quite a good amount of like close second place finishes that I'm excited about to see like how I could keep making those adjustments and coming in from being able to was really happy to be able to like run 35 miles a week pretty consistently most of last year, and then coming into the fall with going to that training camp, I was able to start getting more to the 50, like right around 50 miles, healthy, consistently, finally being able to do long runs without anything issues coming up. And so very excited for the 50 plus miles kind of weeks now being sustainable for this year.
Yeah. So you mentioned Miranda. I think the August event you're talking about was like the Boston race. So that was the big thing that made you stick out as an athlete, because you put out a post on about your Sunday race. Do you remember off the top of your head what you wrote about about that race?
I think I need a refresher a little bit.
It was made possible by chocolate ice cream and a long nap.
Yes, 100%.
Which
The
are my
recovery and
wife's
sleeping piece is critical.
Yeah, two of my wife's favorite things. So I'd get in trouble if I didn't ask, what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate peanut butter, I
Oh,
would
yeah.
say. And I will put this out there to anybody whenever I hear, oh, I'm the biggest ice cream fan. I think I have you beat because every time I travel somewhere, I plan the trip around making sure we hit all the best ice cream spots. And I go through all of the photos, all the reviews, evaluate, like making sure I see, like, is this actually a good type of texture and quality ice cream? So, yeah, I'm a massive fan.
That's how Caitlin is too. She's originally from New Jersey. We live in Massachusetts now, and she doesn't do well with understanding like Bridgewater, West Bridgewater, East Bridgewater. She knows places based on, wait, is that the town that has this ice cream place? Is that the town that has this ice cream place? And I will also offer a challenge to you. It's usually the same weekend as Savage Race Boston, but there's a race in Vermont, and it's not sponsored by Ben and Jerry's. I don't think they use Ben and Jerry's ice cream, but it's a ice cream 5K where you run the first half, you have to have like a pint of ice cream, and then you have to finish the race.
Oh, I would crush in that. When I was in college in the summertime, I would stop my run, get frozen yogurt, and then continue my run frequently because it's like I didn't have a car, so I would run places and do things like that. Yeah, that is something I would thrive in.
Yeah, she was telling I didn't get to make it out because I was covering Savage that year, but she said like the people that took it seriously, like they brought their own spoons because they would have like plastic spoons and they would bend and stuff. So they're like,
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's just that that's like, I don't know. I'm good at eating and I'm okay at running, so it's a good
yeah.
it's a good intersection for me. But over the course of talking about these races, it's a good variety of there. You've mentioned ultra, you've mentioned shorter courses. What do you enjoy most? Like if you had to go all in on one distance, what do you think it would be?
Well, I'm going all in on the ultra for this year. So
Okay.
I'm definitely gonna do the Ultra World Championships in France.
Borzine, okay.
I got my flight booked to at least be able to get to Europe. I got to get the flight exactly to Geneva next. But definitely that is a core focus for me for this year to start to be ready for that as best as possible and see where the second half of the season goes after that. Because it's right July 5th, right after the 4th of July. It's a nice point where the Spartan North American Championships is not until September. That's also the 13-mile distance. So still very endurance heavy. So that's my A race for this year have kind of coming up. And funny enough, my favorite races so far have been the 5K and the ultra.
Okay.
I mean, for a Spartan race, a 5K it's a half hour or so plus. So if you were to put that in the context of track and field, like that's the amount of time that 10K is. And that's the longest race you can do on a track. And a lot of the athletes who do a 10K, they're also pretty good at the half marathon. So while there is a huge gap in terms of the time for that, and the pace that you're going to be running is much quicker, at the same time, it still comes down to engine. And you need to have like an efficient turnover to be good at the ultra and that you're not breaking down, right? Like, yes, the pace is slower, but at the same time, if you're going to be running well, like, it's one of the biggest factors is just trying to get your body to the point where you don't hit that wall and you're able to keep moving. And keep moving means having a really good flow and rhythm. And that flow and rhythm for a really quick turnover is important for the 5K. And it's just a different type of flow and rhythm for the ultra. And I find that the super and the beast, I want to get better at that. That's a goal, to keep getting better at those. But it's that the hour kind of beast or super, I should say. It's like an interesting kind of demand on the body where you have to be pushing hard, but then you can't be pushing too hard that you kind of burn out and hit a wall. And same thing with the beast, because you can kind of hit that wall if you push too hard too soon, which is something that I struggled with. Like, that's where I hit a couple of barriers last year where I didn't quite nail the pacing, which is tough when you have sometimes really steep hills or really difficult terrain. It's a lot easier to nail it if it's a flatter course, but there's really not flat courses much typically that are on that 10K and B side. Occasionally there are, like, but then sometimes Spartan finds a way where you're running through mud and water the whole time where you're not actually running normal, you're like high kneeing it, and that is that's a whole other type of technique. So yeah, I really love the flow of running, and I find I get in the flow the best in the 5Ks and the ultras so far.
But that's a good way of explaining. I've talked to a lot of athletes, and they talk about, the super being one of their least favorite distances because it is, as you said, kind of falls in that like gray area of like you're not going fast and you can't go too slow. It's like it's kind of like awkward in the middle there.
You can't. It's like maybe you can fuel, maybe you can't. It's like right on that line where if it was a longer super, yeah, you could have had you maybe wanted to fuel, but how is that even kicking in really by the time you're about finishing up? That's what also makes it really tricky too, the fueling piece of it.
Yeah. And going back to Morzine and the Ultra World Championships, I know you're fairly new to it, but how grateful are you that the Ultra World Championships isn't a 24-hour Spartan race like it used to be, now is actually representative of the ultra distance that Spartan has?
Oh, I'm so excited about it. Yeah, because I mean, on the 24-hour route, I mean, that's a completely different type of race. It's not coming down to, hey, can you run a 7-minute mile consistently? It's like, how can you find a way to keep moving consistently? Yes, like that's important, but you're not tapping into like that flowy run. It's how do you stop your body from breaking down over the course of 24 hours better than everybody else? And so you can't also do a lot of 24-hour races and prep for something like that. It's really like you can really only do one race for that, because if you did a 24-hour race and prep for another one, like you're gonna be probably destroyed for several weeks afterwards. Is like the amount of stimulus that is not going to be giving you a positive training effect. This is the ultra, more accessible. I mean, there's ultra races that happen pretty frequently, so you can't have that benefit. And if you do an ultra that's not too hilly, you could come off of that like recovered 3 days later, like within a couple of days later after it, with the right training going into it, of course.
Whereas something like a World's Toughest Mudder takes like weeks to recover from. And that was another thing too. When Spartan acquired Tough Mudder, that's something that a lot of people, myself included, were panicked about because World's Toughest Mudder is my favorite event. And it just didn't make sense for both to exist. So a lot of us were like waiting to see like what's going to happen. And I think that the Spartan Ultra World Championships that got canceled 2022, I think, and then some of the athletes rolling over and doing World's Toughest Mudder, I think that's the best thing that could have happened, because now we have some more great athletes there, And now with this rolling out of, the Ultra World Championships being a Spartan Ultra, I'm very excited. It sounds like a lot of athletes are excited about that because it's more to
Oh,
a lot of people's
yeah.
style.
It's more accessible and it's more mimics what you can already do in like the regular season for a race. So it's like you would never have in the Olympics. Hey, you're gonna have a half marathon qualifier is the only way you can qualify, and then we're gonna have you do an ultra in the
Mhm.
Olympics. It's not the same.
Almost to the extent of like the 3K series of like 1K qualifier to a 3K like finals. Did you take part in the 3K? Were you at Palmerton?
Yeah, I tried
Wow.
out Palmerton. Yes, I mean that race alone was, I mean, that was so different than anything I've ever done. Because if you have 10 obstacles in a 1K loop, that's 100 meters of running in between. So it's all about obstacle efficiency as much as possible. And like what I normally love about the Spartan races is if you're a little bit slower on an obstacle, you might get your heart rate might be dropping more. And then you have an advantage to be able to push harder on the running portion of it. And you recovered a little bit better. The 3K series really favored how fast can you get through everything as much as possible. Your running matters, but to a much lesser extent. And like, I mean, how 100 meters in between, like roughly obstacles. Now it's not exactly that. Like you can't make up that much ground on the running portion. Now you can fall off quite a bit, but you can't really make up that many more seconds against the field in any way. And then how your body handles a 1K versus a 3K, that can vary really dramatically on that ends of things. And so I like the more of the variety of factors that can influence like the outcome of a longer Spartan race.
Yeah, so that event was the only one that I was able to cover for the 3K series. We must have just missed each other, but another aspect of that event too was the barbed wire, which was brutal. I did the super, actually it was my first time doing that super on Saturday, and at the end of the race, I was I was dying getting through that. How terrible was it dealing with that barbed wire?
Yeah, it was not the most fun, and I am not like the most I'm not the most fearless person either, so it's like that was something that definitely slowed me down a bit because I'm like I don't want to be getting all cut up and like I don't know how some like that's incredible that some people could be that fearless, but that's not me. So like that was definitely a factor in the race, 1,000% for the whole field.
So I could see where this would be going to. What are your thoughts on barbed wire being in these events versus like just regular wire like that can keep people low just as well?
I mean, I would probably prefer there's not barbed wire, and that like it could like it's cut up my like water pack a good amount, like where it's like you go into it and it's looking pretty new and now it's already pretty beat up. I mean, I think at the slower paced races, it's not as big of a deal again because if you lose a couple of seconds on that barbed wire, it is not going to separate you from the field and like because you can always make up that time again. It's not coming down to who was willing to kind of get cut up and like if you're saying your race is coming down to that, it's not. You would probably be using that as an excuse where maybe you could have ran faster afterwards. So I mean I haven't really had a major issue with it again for the 5K, even like the 5K races for that kind of extent. It's probably safer to not have it, but at the same time, like you can definitely just adjust how you tackle the barbed wire and be okay that it's not like there's ever $1 million on the line
Right.
and it's gonna come down to 100 people going through the barbed wire at once and who cares the least about what happens to their body. So I think it could be fine, I think, just generally for the longer races.
I agree that that seems to be like the best answer for the 3K though. I was very disappointed seeing. I mean, being in the sport for over a decade now,
Mhm.
it was disheartening to see a lot of these great athletes at the finish line, and at this point, some friends at the athletes like with their backs bleeding as much as they were. It's not very
Yeah.
sanitary, but I agree for like the longer races, especially for the open waivers, like it looks badass. Like that's good to draw more people
Yeah.
in. I crawled
Yeah.
under the wire.
Open waivers, or I mean, for me in that case, I wore a tank because I knew it was like, well, I don't want to risk kind of getting cut up. And like I knew like that probably takes a little bit off in terms of your total speed if you're slightly overheating a little bit more compared to the other athletes. So that's kind of where like the equipment and what you're wearing matters. But in a 3K, every second mattered, and that barbed wire was the difference between minutes between people. So
Yeah. How did you end up doing with that? With like, did you make it to like the second qualifier? How far along did you make it through?
I made it to the second qualifier, barely.
All right.
And then I didn't make it to the final from that. Yeah, I mean, I was slow with the barbed wire, and then I didn't get the rigs both times through. It was like those cues again, like working on having a better swing, all of that, having everything come naturally. That just takes the training, consistency, the experience of actually like what happens. One thing if you can do it in training and you're collected and you're fresh and you're not overthinking it, or you panic right in that moment. So that was like a perfect example of, okay, here's another area to like fine tune a bit more. And I don't think I would have made the final either way because I was too slow with the barbed wire.
And not for nothing, but that I believe was the most stacked 3 event that they had in the entire series, which was great for me because I get to see so many people that I hadn't seen before. What is it like? Obviously, we talked about like you going out in Boulder and training with those ladies, but how great is it like racing with these new people and even being an introvert, like socializing and getting to meet new athletes?
I mean, it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, I think for anybody, introvert, extrovert, you're around people who share the same interests, passions. Everybody is trying to bring out the best in themselves in that race. And like, yes, you're competing, but you're with other people, but you're competing ultimately against yourself is like the biggest factor. So everyone at these races, even in the most competitive 3K race, like I was chatting, saying hi to some of like the girls that I knew were going out to Colorado that I like met for the first time briefly. And then as you're seeing different women more and more, like I see Kelly Sullivan a whole lot at all the races on the East Coast. So you get to be better and better friends like with all these women over time. So it just makes for such a great positive environment. And to me, I feel like the best way to describe it is like if anybody ever did like cross country in high school, or they did different other like team sports in high school where it's less about, oh, you're fighting for a slot to play like center forward on the basketball team. It's more like everybody runs. The better somebody else runs on the team, the better you're going to score as a team overall for like the points within track or cross country. It gives me that kind of same friendly team kind of vibe, even though you're not on a team together, but you're all collectively working towards tackling this really tough terrain and race together, essentially, in some ways.
Yeah. And I would say that out of the hundreds of athletes that I've talked to over the years and stuff too, they all seem very approachable. But that being said, it's easy to put them on the pedestal of like, oh my God, you are blank. Have you ever been starstruck by an athlete?
I don't think so on that type of end of things. I think, I mean, there's definitely, again, levels of some women and men being leaps and bounds, like right now, beyond where I'm at. But at the same time, like I've come into the sport being like, hey, you know what? You can get there with time. And a lot of like the really top athletes, they've been doing it for years and years and years. And you're starting off sooner in your journey. And maybe that could be you with time.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good attitude to have. And in being with the sport, what are some like life lessons that you've taken from the sport and kind of applied to your life?
Failure, being able to cope with failure. I mean, we all deal with like failures and different challenges like that in our lives previously before racing OCR. And if you haven't, then this is a perfect chance to really be able to confront failure dead on and learn how do you deal with it, adjust it, reframe it in your mind, and work to identify those next steps, because there's just so many chances to fail and so many things to fail at in these races. And like it can be frustrating, you know, to say the least, or like you can't get hooked on the outcome when there are all of these factors. It's about being able to keep improving on all these little steps. Like there's so many different elements in these races, the terrain, the weather on that day, the obstacles, the situations that you're in with who you're competing against. And like those are all areas that you can improve upon. And like that's how I really like viewed last year for racing is I need to get better at all of the types of the terrain, all of the types of situations, every single thing. And each time, like while some of them will naturally suit you a little bit better or align better with your existing strengths, well, those are all areas that where you're not as good, you can improve technically the most. Because if you suck at downhill descents, you can get at least probably a little bit better each time you do that type of race. And be okay with not being like first by a long shot in that type of race or that type of scenario. So I think it's really that's one of the best benefits of OCR is that there are all those areas to keep improving and all of these opportunities at the same time to fail and learn how to deal with that failure. And what I absolutely like love about the community and a lot of like the different women like race against is like there's not secrets, like nobody really keeps it as a secret because there's all these variety of factors and because everyone wants to bring out the best in themselves. That also means you want your competitors to bring out the best in them too, to then help you push to that next level. So there's been so many different instances where completely bombed with different things, and then you could talk to some of the women afterwards at the race like, hey, how'd you do this, or like what do you have any advice for this, because they like I've learned so many different tips from Rachel Waters, for instance. Like she was one of the first person. She gave me so much advice and insights and encouragement early on as I was coming in last in the elite field several times, relatively, or like second to last, let's say, or like Sarah Grippy Snyder helping me out, like I said, with the Olympus obstacle. And then at the flip side, I can give Sarah advice for how to improve like running economy because it's like I have that background. So that's just something I really love about the sport in that sense. And be prepared to be humbled frequently for something you think you have down. And then you come out of barbed wire crawl and your legs feel like crap. And like, how do you deal with that?
It's great.
About a road race.
As you're talking about that, the person that I had in my mind was actually Rachel Waters, because I think of all the people that I've talked to, whether it's Jamie Horianopoulos, who's talking about like, I'm battling in Savage Race, and Rachel falls and then she cheers me on as I proceed to pass her. Like that's the kind of sport that it is. And I fucking love it. It's the best. You mentioned the Spartan Ultra World Championships being like a big focus. What else do you have planned for 2024?
So I'm going to be stacking the races in prep for the Ultra World Championship because again, every race, I think, as long as you're not giving it 110% at the field, that you cross the finish line and you feel like, wow, I have nothing left in my body and it's going to take me weeks to recover. As long as you go into the approach with the races not leaving every single last drop trying to squeeze out of you, they can be all good preps for going into, like, say, for prepping for the ultra, because again, all those micro adjustments, it adds up, especially once you go into those obstacles the second time through and you're fatigued. Like, I've had instances like I failed the monkey bars for the ultra this past May just because I was slightly over gripping, and I went into that obstacle they had like an obstacle gauntlet all in a row, and if I just had slightly loosened up my grip and not over gripped, I wouldn't have like pumped out my forearms for something like that. So trying to like keep fine tuning everything for going into the ultra championships. So Jacksonville in February again, Atlanta again in March, April, probably the Beast in New Jersey, and then the following weekends, the Fayetteville Ultra. And then there's a couple more races in New York. There's going to be like the New York Bethel race again. And I like to do the stadions for fun. I'm not a risk taker again, so I don't really skip stairs. I'm like, I'll take my time going down the stairs and like get my heart rate up a bit and have fun in that. So yeah, I'll have quite a good amount of races, but I will not be trying to empty the tank and like leave my soul on the course, because I need to keep that with me. Maybe the only caveat is like I'm definitely going to go into the ultra in Fayetteville is like tune up. You could give it everything you got, because that's 2 months prior to the July Ultra Championship.
Yeah, you mentioned City Field. The stadium races are my favorite races by far.
They are such a fun thing to do. Like I feel like just anybody in general, if you like sports, like you should, you like sports, or you're looking to just do something fun with your friends, like you'll run into the clubhouse and come out onto the field. It's just so much fun from that standpoint. So
And that's the ironic thing, because I'm not into other sports. Like OCR is my one sport, but I just love the short format. It's so spectator friendly. It's the best event to cover. City Field was actually the first event that I covered as media. It's so much fun. And back in the day, there used to be a stadium series, and that was always like my favorite thing because, people would always pay attention to just like the beast distance. But I'm like, there's a lot of fast people out there too that deserve a lot of respect. So yeah, I plan to be to City Field and cover that too, because that's always a good race. I've actually never ran it, ironically, because I'm always doing media there, but I'll run it this year.
Yeah, I mean, you could go this year.
Yeah.
It's June.
And I didn't have a good place to fit this in, but who is Cinnabon?
Cinnabon is my 5-pound mini loth. He is absolutely adorable, full of sass, loves to eat, and just a lot of personality. I absolutely love and advocate that I think so many more people should have pet bunnies. You don't have to worry about walking them. They are social animals. It's something that I really love, in that bunnies don't instantly trust you. Like, you have to build that trust and build that love with them. So it's not just like, oh, I see you, I absolutely love you right from the start. So there feels something to be very genuine and rewarding about building up that relationship with having a pet bunny. And like he free roams around everywhere, like when I'm home, and he has his own room, kind of full setup, or he's like free roams in that room because we have it bunny proof, so he can't cause any too much in terms of chaos. So yes, Cinnabon is the absolute, like, one of the cutest little bunnies.
I asked because I have a friend that has a bunny too, and it's adorable. And you're right, there is that, like, you have to build up that trust, because I love all animals. I was telling you about my cat earlier, and I'm a little disappointed that, like, I want to pet the bunny. It looks so soft, but like I haven't earned its respect yet. And I respect the fact that it is that way, similar to cats. Dogs love you all the time. Cats take a little while to warm up. But yeah, bunnies they're adorable. Now, and Cinnabon looks very, very cute. So, starting to come to a close, where can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Cassandra_Gill. I believe there's an underscore after that. You'll see somebody with a running profile on there. So that's probably the best place to find me. Also on LinkedIn, just /Cassandra_Gill.
So yeah, it's Cassandra_Gill_. Speaking of LinkedIn, like, what do you do for your full-time job? Just curious.
Yeah, so I'm a group manager for a tech company, Datadog. So they're as tech as you can get, because we are a software company for software engineers. So making sure that websites are up and running properly, any types of bugs, you're able to identify exactly the system or code that's causing those types of issues, be able to resolve them really quickly. And I oversee most of our digital advertising efforts, so paid search, paid social, search engine marketing as well, like the SEO side of things, and really kind of getting behind trying to identify what exactly is motivating somebody to act, and like some ads people actually care about versus they do not care at all. It's all just hypothetical and it's not true.
That's pretty cool. Awesome. Well, Cassandra, thanks so much for taking the time to do this interview. It's great to finally get to know you a little bit better, and hope to see you at a finish line sometime this year.
Yeah, it's nice connecting with you, Mike.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Cassandra Gill. I hope to cover more events in person this year, and hopefully we'll meet you in person. For related episodes, we mentioned the Palmerton 3K coverage where she was. Again, we didn't have her on the show for that one, but that was episode 342. That's a good one, probably one of my favorites from last year. Episode 343 was with Rachel Waters, who was mentioned in this episode. Another really, really good interview, as well as Lisa Musacchio, who is episode 347, who I believe was also in the top podium earners of last year. Links down below, so would you kindly check those out?
Subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts. We are on all podcast players at Obstacle Running Adventures.
Yeah, you can also support us over on Patreon for as little as $2, like Bonnie Wilson, who just joined, or as many as $10. We'd greatly, greatly appreciate it.
Follow us on social media. We are on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah. I thought about some ideas that I'd like to do for TikTok, but I still am just too thin, so I can't do that. Coming up next, we will be at the Run Show in Boston. So hope to see you guys there. Again, the code is Last Chance if you want your tickets.
That'd be fun. And if you see us there, come say hi.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Hopefully Brett Mazza will be there again.
Yeah.
So last time he helped us out.
And don't be afraid to fangirl.
Yeah.
Not over us, but over people.
Yes, I'm glad you clarified that. Yeah, because we fangirled over some people.
I remember I fangirled over the guy on Twitter.
I do remember that.
That was so embarrassing.
Yeah, and I got to meet someone who I heard on the Running Public. Go back and listen to those episodes. Those are damn good. And so the Run Show this time, we'll do 1 or 2 episodes on that as well. Caitlin, do you have a joke or a quote?
I've got both. My quote is from Louise Kaufman, and she says, "Perhaps we should learn to love ourselves so loudly that it silences our insecurities." And then my joke is, "What do you call people who sleep in their socks?"
What?
So tiny.
Oh, nice. All right, well, that just about wraps it up. My name is Michael Stefanik.
And my name is Caitlin Ritter.
And we'll talk to you next weekend.
From Boston.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to our show and write us a review on your favorite podcast app.
You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook and connect with us there.
Most importantly, we would appreciate it if you shared an episode with a friend so we can reach more ears.
Then continue to effectively shine a light on the people in our sport, as well as the events that we are so passionate about.
Our intro song is Street Crew by Straight Up, and our outro music is Iron Call by The Best.
Nice to meet you, Mike.
Yeah, good to meet you too. Sorry, I'm a little late. I got a new cat yesterday, so trying to get this cat to get along with that cat.
All good. I was about 30 seconds, minute late putting my bunny away.
Okay.
So you can't hear much chewing or anything in the background.
Love bunnies. I have some bunny questions later on in this too.